I've been reading the book Deeper Dating by Ken Page, and I love one of the concepts he uses to explain the difference between toxic relationships and healthy love, and to explain the process of shifting your attraction patterns. Did you know you can actually do that? Attraction is not fixed. You can actually shift who you're drawn to. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. These two different types of attractions and how we can shift our attraction patterns from being drawn to partners who hurt us to being drawn to partners who lift us up. Before we get into this, if you're in a toxic relationship and you're really struggling to understand what's going on, like why your partner does what they do, or if you're wondering if they can change and then things will get better, or if you can't get what they've said to you out of your head because they said some kind of mean and hurtful things, then check out my Toxic Relationship Deprogrammer. It's 3 video trainings that you can get right now that were everything that I needed to know back when I was in an abusive relationship and wondering what the heck was going on. Was it my fault? Can they change? And what should my next steps be? So if you're in a toxic relationship and you want clarity, you want to feel peace, you want to feel sane, then get my deprogrammer. The link is in the description here. I've also included a bonus guided meditation to help you feel worthy of real love, because that's what keeps us in those toxic relationships, not feeling worthy of something better, not feeling good enough. So again, click on the link in the description to get the deprogrammer ASAP. So let's talk about attraction patterns. Ken Page in his book talks about 2 different types: attractions of inspiration and attractions of deprivation. If you're hearing this and you already know which type of attraction you primarily experience, let me know in the comments. Let's start by talking about attractions of deprivation. What is he talking about? So I'm going to take a quote straight from the book here. Attractions of deprivation can be wildly compelling, posing as true love as they woo us off the edge of a cliff. Ooh, isn't that true? I know you know what that feels like. Being so into someone who isn't emotionally available. Trying so hard to get someone to treat you well. Trying to prove your worth to someone who doesn't appreciate you. Or feeling desperate for the attention of someone who sometimes treats you great, but other times treats you horribly. Attractions of deprivation draw you in and then they bring you down. They drain your energy. They leave you feeling worse off than when you started. You spend all of your time thinking about the relationship, trying to figure out how to win their approval. You may even see red flags, but it's like you can't help yourself. You move forward anyway because you're so attracted. These are the relationships with narcissists, unavailable people, addicts, people who cheat repeatedly. These are the toxic relationships. So now that we know what we're talking about here, why are we drawn into these relationships, these attractions of deprivation? You may not like hearing this, but it's actually a sneaky way to avoid real intimacy. It's our own emotional unavailability. It's our own fears of intimacy. Because if we're really scared of intimacy deep down, these types of relationships will actually feel safer and more comfortable than real intimacy, than being with an emotionally available person. If you're watching this and you're like, oh man, yeah, that's me, don't worry. We're going to talk more about how to shift this. But before we talk about how to shift these attractions, let's talk about the opposite, the attractions of inspiration. These are the good ones. There's a lot of warmth and a general sense of ease to these type of relationships. The challenge actually in these relationships, according to Ken Page, is to learn how to accept our partner's caring versus trying to win that caring from someone who doesn't. This is much easier said than done. There's a feeling of well-being when you're in these relationships. Like you just feel good, you just feel healthy while you're in them, and they develop more slowly. And they may take work, but the reason it's an attraction of inspiration is both partners are willing to do that work. They're able to do that work. In an attraction of inspiration, you feel love, which is very calm, it's peaceful. You're not feeling that desperation, that intense longing, because your partner is present. They're already there. You don't have to long for them. These relationships lift us up and inspire us. And that's actually one of the ways that I knew I was in a good relationship. If you're new here and you don't know much about my story, I was in toxic relationships for many, many years, and I'm now in a healthy, loving relationship. Being with my partner, my life just kept getting better and better. All areas of my life really improved, whereas in the past, that didn't happen. And actually, my life in general was not getting better. In many ways, it was getting worse. My attractions of deprivation made my life harder. In an attraction of inspiration, you feel like the best version of yourself when you're with this person. So these are the types of attractions we want to cultivate, the attractions of inspiration. Now, how do we do this? How do we shift our attraction patterns? The first thing that we need to know, big picture here, is that these attractions of inspiration that we want to shift to, they're going to feel very different from the attractions you're used to, the attractions of deprivation. They don't hit you quickly like an attraction of deprivation typically does. It's more of a slow burn. It's quieter at first. It's not like that temporary high that you get when an unavailable partner gives you attention after they haven't for a while. You know what I mean. This is a slower burn feeling. It develops slower and it's less intense. So how we open up to these attractions is by loving ourselves. Now, I know that sounds almost cliche at this point, right? So let me talk about how we actually do that. Step 1, allow all of your feelings to be okay. You might be thinking, what does this have to do with attraction? But one of the main reasons that we stop loving ourselves is we disown entire parts of ourselves that are connected to certain feelings. We were conditioned that certain parts of ourselves, certain emotions, were not acceptable, including our emotions. Maybe you had a dad that said something like, boys don't cry. Or maybe your mom said something like, girls don't get angry. That's what I'm talking about here. Or maybe you felt that parts of yourself, parts of your emotional experience were not acceptable in your family because there was a lot of unavailability. Maybe it felt like the only thing you were allowed to be was happy. So you may have learned to shut down certain emotions, certain parts of yourself. And that is the opposite of self-love. That is self-abandonment. And every single one of us has done that. So don't judge yourself harshly here. So when you allow yourself to feel all of your emotions, that is the most powerful form of self-love that's out there. When you start allowing your emotions, you're more accepting of yourself. You're more gentle with yourself. And in turn, you're more gentle with other people. You're more accepting of other people. And what happens when you do that is you get less comfortable around people who aren't like that, who are very judgmental of your feelings. You feel less comfortable around people who aren't empathetic to you and the emotions that you're feeling. So that's step 1, allow all of your emotions to be there. So the second step towards more self-love is doing subconscious work. And in particular, rewiring the subconscious negative beliefs that you may be carrying around about yourself and about the world around you. You may be carrying around the belief that you are not lovable or you are not enough. And that is simply not true. That's just something you picked up when you were younger to try to make sense of what was happening around you. It wasn't your fault that you developed those beliefs, but now it is your responsibility to shift them, to unlearn this illusion that there is something wrong with you or that you're not good enough. When you do that, you see yourself more realistically. And that's when the genuine self-love emerges from within you, because it's been there the whole time. It was just covered over by these beliefs that you picked up. So step 3 for learning how to love yourself so you can shift your attraction patterns is learning how to have really good boundaries. Learning how to say no and learning that it's okay to have what you want. So many of us have not given ourselves permission to really go for what we want, to turn down the meh relationships because we don't feel like we deserve anything more. We haven't given ourselves permission to go for the relationship that really feels amazing. So on a practical level, this really means learning how to date, because most of us have never learned how to date to find a healthy relationship. We just went out there and went looking for people who we feel attracted to. And that's when we got into trouble. So in order to rewire your attraction patterns, you have to learn how to date differently so that you can find real love, an attraction of inspiration. It's a very different dating process. So in a nutshell, that is what you do to rewire your attraction pattern so you can experience those attractions of inspiration. And if you need help doing this, this is exactly what I do for you in my Living Free Finding Love program. I am helping you rewire your attraction patterns by doing that deep subconscious work that I talked about, like rewiring your negative beliefs. If you're interested in learning more about that, click on the link in the description. Rewiring your attraction pattern can be a lot of work and it can be really uncomfortable, but I promise you it's worth it. From the other side of that journey, I can tell you it was really scary at times, but I'm so happy I've made that journey, and I know that you will be too. Speaking of attraction, if you want to learn more about why the physical intimacy in a toxic relationship can be so intoxicating, check out this video here.